The night sky over Beirut erupted in flames, painting the horizon with a fiery glow that could be seen for miles. A deafening roar shook the ground, sending shockwaves across the Lebanese capital, reverberating through the streets and alleys. It was a scene of chaos and terror, with people running in every direction, their faces masks of fear and confusion. Buildings crumbled, windows shattered, and a thick cloud of dust and debris filled the air, making it hard to breathe or see. This was not just another airstrike. This was different, more intense, more destructive. This was an attack on the heart of Hezbollah, a calculated strike aimed at crippling the organization. The people of Beirut, hardened by years of conflict, found themselves running for their lives once again, their resilience tested to the limit. Mothers clutched their children, their faces etched with fear and desperation, seeking any form of safety. The elderly stumbled through the streets, seeking shelter from the falling debris, their frail bodies struggling against the chaos. The city, once a beacon of hope in the Middle East, was now a scene of utter devastation, its spirit seemingly crushed under the weight of destruction. The date was date redacted, and Israel had launched its most daring attack on Hezbollah yet, a night that would be remembered in infamy. The target, the group's headquarters in the heart of Beirut, a symbol of their power and influence, now reduced to rubble. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, confirmed the strike, stating it was a necessary action to ensure the safety and security of their nation. Their target was no less than the nerve center of Hezbollah, the group's operational headquarters, a place where critical decisions and strategies were formulated. The IDF claimed the building was not just a military target, but also a hub for planning attacks against Israel, making it a focal point in their ongoing conflict. It was a high-stakes gamble, a calculated risk to deliver a decisive blow to Hezbollah's leadership, aiming to disrupt their operations significantly. Hezbollah, the powerful militant group and political party, has long been a thorn in Israel's side, with its influence extending across Lebanon and beyond. Designated a terrorist organization by the United States and several other countries, Hezbollah has fought numerous conflicts with Israel, most notably the 2006 Lebanon War, which left a lasting impact on the region. This latest strike, however, marked a significant escalation in tensions, raising concerns among international observers about the potential for further violence. By striking at the heart of Hezbollah's power base, Israel had taken a dangerous gamble, one that threatened to plunge the region into a full-blown war, with unpredictable and far-reaching consequences. The strike sent shockwaves that reverberated far beyond the streets of Beirut. News channels around the world flashed images of the explosion, the fiery inferno a stark reminder of the volatile situation in the Middle East. World leaders scrambled to respond, condemning the violence and urging restraint. The international community, long accustomed to the Israel-Hezbollah conflict, watched with bated breath. The stakes were higher than ever. This was not just a localized skirmish. This was a conflict with the potential to ignite a regional conflagration. The world held its breath, waiting to see how Hezbollah would respond. Retaliation was expected, but the question was, how and where would Hezbollah strike back? Condemnation poured in from across the globe as leaders from various nations voiced their concerns and disapproval. French President Emmanuel Macron, visibly shaken, described the civilian casualties as absolutely shocking, emphasizing the need for immediate action. Macron's voice, usually calm and measured, trembled with anger and frustration. His emotional appeal highlighted the gravity of the situation. He called for an immediate ceasefire, warning that Lebanon could not afford to become another Gaza. The urgency in his voice was palpable. From the United Nations, Lebanese Foreign Minister Abdallah Bou Habib delivered a passionate plea, urging the international community to take decisive action. His voice cracked with emotion as he spoke of the suffering of his people, painting a vivid picture of the dire situation on the ground. "How many more innocent lives must be lost before the world acts?" he implored, his words echoing in the silent hall. His words resonated deeply, a stark reminder of the human cost of this seemingly intractable conflict. The room was filled with a somber silence. The international community, though united in its condemnation of the violence, seemed powerless to stop it. The frustration was evident. The cycle of violence once again seemed to be spinning out of control with no end in sight. The world watched in despair, hoping for a resolution. Section 5, Hezbollah's retaliation, a promise of fire. Hezbollah, true to its reputation, vowed a swift and devastating response. The group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, delivered a fiery address, his words echoing across the airwaves. "Our retaliation will be harsh," he promised, his eyes burning with rage. "Israel will pay a heavy price for its crimes." The threat was not taken lightly. Hezbollah, with its vast arsenal of rockets and missiles, had the capability to strike deep within Israeli territory. The prospect of a full-scale war, a conflict that could engulf the entire region, loomed large. The world braced itself for Hezbollah's response, knowing that the situation was like a powder keg, and the slightest spark could ignite a conflagration. Section 6. Trapped in the crossfire, the plight of civilians. As tensions escalated, it was the civilians who were caught in the crossfire. In the aftermath of the Beirut strike, rescue workers dug through the rubble, searching for survivors. The air was thick with the smell of dust, smoke, and death. The images that emerged were heart-wrenching. Hospitals overflowed with the injured, the wounded bearing witness to the indiscriminate nature of the violence. Among the casualties were women, children, the elderly, innocent lives tragically cut short, their stories, their hopes, their dreams, buried under the debris of war. The human cost of the conflict was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The international community, already condemning the violence, now faced mounting pressure to do more to protect civilians and find a peaceful solution. Section 7. The U.S. walking a tightrope. The United States, a steadfast ally of Israel, found itself in a delicate position. The Biden administration, while acknowledging Israel's right to defend itself, expressed concern over the escalating violence and the rising civilian death toll. The U.S., a key player in the Middle East peace process, faced a difficult task. On the one hand, it had to reassure its Israeli ally of unwavering support. On the other hand, it had to engage with Hezbollah, directly or indirectly, to prevent a further escalation that could spiral into a regional war. The U.S., walking a diplomatic tightrope, called for restraint and dialogue, urging both sides to step back from the brink. The situation remained precarious, a tinderbox awaiting a spark. Section 8. A region on edge, the domino effect. The Beirut strike had far-reaching implications, sending ripples of anxiety across the already volatile Middle East. Regional actors, many with their own scores to settle, watched the unfolding events with a mixture of apprehension and opportunism. Iran, Hezbollah's main backer, condemned the strike and vowed to support its allies. The specter of a wider conflict, one that could draw in regional and global powers, loomed large. The stability of the Middle East, always fragile, hung in the balance. The Beirut strike was a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the region, where even a localized conflict had the potential to ignite a regional conflagration. The world watched with bated breath, hoping that diplomacy and reason would prevail. Section 9. The Ghost of Qana, a history repeating. The Beirut strike evoked painful memories of past conflicts, particularly the 2006 Lebanon War. The ghost of Qana, a town in southern Lebanon that witnessed one of the deadliest incidents of that war, hung heavy over the current crisis. In 2006, an Israeli airstrike on a building in Qana killed dozens of civilians, many of them children. The incident sparked international outrage and became a symbol of the devastating human cost of the conflict. The Beirut strike, with its potential for civilian casualties, raised fears of history repeating itself. The world held its breath, hoping that the lessons of Qana had been learned, that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. Section 10. The long road ahead, between war and peace. As the dust settled in Beirut, the long and arduous task of rebuilding began. The physical scars of the strike were evident, the shattered glass, the crumbled concrete, the buildings reduced to rubble. But the emotional scars, the invisible wounds of trauma and loss, ran even deeper. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The ceasefire, though fragile, offered a glimmer of hope. International mediators worked tirelessly, shuttling between capitals, trying to broker a lasting peace. The question remained, could Israel and Hezbollah break free from the cycle of violence? Could they find a way to coexist peacefully? The road to peace was long and arduous, but the alternative, another devastating war, was unthinkable. Section 11. A world watching, a plea for peace. The eyes of the world remained fixed on the Middle East, a region teetering on the brink. The Beirut strike was a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating human cost of conflict. From the ashes of destruction, a plea for peace arose, a plea for dialogue, for understanding, for compassion. It was a plea that transcended borders, cultures, and religions, a universal cry for an end to the violence. The world watched, hoped, and prayed for peace. The future, not just of the Middle East but of the world, hung in the balance.